What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Word on Woodward presented by Raymond. Empower your purpose with Raymond. After taking a week off, we've got a great show planned for you guys. Dan Dickerson will be joining us shortly, as well as a look ahead at the Tigers matchup against the White Sox tonight. The Athletics prospect guru, Scott Wheeler, that's NHL prospect. So we'll talk some Red Wings prospects and some upcoming draft prospects. Three-time Stanley Cup champion Aaron Ward is going to join us, and MLB.com's Jason Beck joins us to talk some Tigers baseball, and Bally Sports Detroit Red Wings broadcaster Ken Daniels will join Art for the headliners. So a lot going on. Make sure you guys are all liking, subscribing, turning on your live notifications so you don't ever miss a single second of the Word on Woodward. And throughout today's show, make sure you're dropping your thoughts, comments, questions, anything you want to say on the comment section wherever you're watching, and we will do our best to get to them throughout the show. And now I'm going to bring in one of my co-hosts, Art Regner. Carly Johnston will be joining us momentarily. But Art, I want to start off the show by saying happy 1-year anniversary birthday to the Word on Woodward. Last week, Wednesday, would have been our exact 1-year date, but obviously we didn't have a show. So today we're celebrating 1 year of the Word on Woodward. That's pretty crazy to think.
Yeah, I mean, today Mark informed us this is show number 90 because we had a schedule there where we're doing it twice a week. Now we're once a week, and I hope and pray we're no times a week. Anyway, yeah, I mean, congratulations to everybody. I really mean it from the very top all the way down to the bottom. I mean, everybody is. Really, there's a lot of work that goes into this show. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Our crew by far is the best. I've been in this business a long time. And if they make our jobs easier, where all I have to do is just sit and pontificate, then that's very, very easy for me. So I really do want to tip my cap to everybody involved in this show, but especially to our crew. Because again, and I know I'm being a little bit redundant here, but they are by far the best group of people I've ever worked with, and they work their tails off. You know, they have a work ethic that is Red Wing like in a way. I mean, the Red Wings work hard, but I'm just saying it's been great. It's been great. Although, Danielle, I do want to say something very, very quickly. Is that, as you know, I've been nursing a toothache here for about 6 weeks, and I got it. I'm going to get it taken care of. And you know how your mind works sometimes. I'm thinking, okay, Thursday's the day where something's going to happen. Something's going to give. So I've been looking for Thursday. So I'm nursing it, and sometimes I'm irritable because it hurts and all that kind of stuff. But I got Thursday. Tomorrow is like circled. It's a red letter day for me. And then I realized that I made it on the 30th, and that's Friday. So it's not tomorrow. And I just realized that. And now my mind, because it's been so psyched up for tomorrow being the day, this tooth is coming back with a vengeance. It's like, yeah, we've got 24 more hours to really make your life hell, Yeah. So anyway, now it's just like, all right, we got a reprieve from the governor. We're not taking the 13 steps today. Here we go. And so now when I realize that it's been put off a day, it's just killing me. It's just, and toothaches are one of those things that you don't know how annoying and how much they hurt until you get it. Until you have one.
I bet a good solution is not talking as much.
Yeah, but you know what? I can't. I mean, I have to.
I'm messing
look,
with
Double
you.
D's about to come. Double D's about to come on, and I know he would be greatly disappointed if I don't acknowledge him and talk to him.
You have to do that. You have to do that.
I just can't sit there and go.
Wait, no. We're gonna bring Dan in right now, Art. Surprise to you.
Beautiful. All right.
He's already logged in. He's early. He's always on time. Dan, help this guy with his toothache, man.
Oh, there's nothing worse. It's like back pain that comes out of nowhere and paralyzes you, or a toothache that just blocks everything out of your mind for as long as it lasts.
I know. I mean,
ice pack sounds good. It doesn't work.
Oh
It's
man.
all encompassing. It's truly all encompassing. It just sits there, and then it really gets intense and it throbs, and then you think, okay, it's letting off, it's going, and then bam, it comes right back. They're horrible. They're very horrible.
Well,
They're very
I'm glad
horrible.
that Dan got to come in and give Art a little bit of comfort. We know that Dan's on the line and he'll be joining us again for the mailbag shortly. So Dan, thanks for popping in and being here early. It's always
Right.
appreciated.
Love you, Double D. You're
All
very
right.
compassionate soul.
Before we talk to Dan, we're going to move into the Big Three presented by Chevy. Our first topic of today's Big Three, we're going to give you a bit of a Red Wings update. And of course, we're going to bring in Carly Johnston for today's Big Three. So let's talk some Red Wings. Last night's game was an interesting one. It was a 0-0 game all the way to the end of regulation. The Red Wings ended up losing in overtime with a final score of 1-0. There's Carly. I was waiting for her, but there she is. So let's start with talking about goaltending. I'm going to get both of your guys' thoughts because Merzlikins and Greiss both played very well. But of course, we're going to focus on Thomas Greiss a bit here. He hasn't had a great go yet. He's been playing super well and hasn't really had all of the goal support that you hope he would have. But Carly, what did you think about what you saw from Greiss last night?
I mean, it was the goalies' game last night. Technically, they both registered shutouts. But, I mean, when you look at a regulation game, nothing. I mean, a completely scoreless game, even going into overtime, scoreless. That you look at the goaltenders. Unfortunately, like you said, Thomas Greiss registered that loss in that shootout. But, I mean, it was insane to look at that game. I was waiting for someone to score. I felt like every time I looked down, I'm like, well, maybe I missed a goal. I look up and it's still 0-0. I'm like, the game's about to end, people. What's going on here? But it was definitely cool. For sure, goalie's game.
Yeah, and Art, it's weird because the game wasn't a boring game to watch. Both teams had some really quality chances.
Well, no doubt about it. I mean, the Red Wings had 41 shots on goal. Columbus had 33, and there seemed to be a lot of backdoor plays that there were going to be wide open nets. I know Zadina's probably still shooting, killing himself today about one that, kind of went off. I don't know. The net was wide open, but really, and I think Chris Osgood pointed this out last night on the telecast on Bally Sports, is that both goaltenders, Merzlikins and Tommy G, as we like to call him, were moving side to side very, very well. And it was strange. It was almost like they were baiting the shooters. They had their angle covered. The guy has the puck, but they anticipated that they were going to go across the ice and try to backdoor them. And these guys, every time that happened, Merzlikins and Greiss were there to stop the puck. They were just there to stop the puck, which, really frustrates a team where you think, God, I've got a wide open net, and boom, out of nowhere, the goalie slides over and comes over. I also thought it was interesting because Merzlikins has been kind of the guy that, there's a great save there by Tommy G, that Merzlikins has taken over in Columbus, but Korpisalo plays his fair share of games. Korpisalo has never lost to the Red Wings. He's 6-0 in his career, and Merzlikins, is right around 500. But obviously, these are big games for both teams. No one wants to finish last in their division, and so I just thought it was a great game by the Red Wings overall. As far as some of these young guys, stepping up. And, they blocked a lot of shots. Again, they had 16 blocked shots. Their power play, they haven't had many power play chances lately. And their penalty kill, things are starting to come together a little bit, which is odd because so many guys, Larkin, Fabry, Bobby Ryan, Nielsen, we don't even mention Bertuzzi anymore. There's so many guys that have been hurt this season, yet this team is finding a way to still remain competitive as they continue to, unfortunately play out the string.
Carly, one exciting thing about that game, well, actually, I guess it's another exciting thing because Thomas Greiss did play very well, but Joe Veleno made his NHL debut with the Red Wings last night, and it was a very solid debut.
Yeah, we finally got to see Veleno in a winged wheel sweater. I mean, I know we didn't have preseason, obviously, with this odd condensed season, so he wasn't at Little Caesars Arena at all. He was playing overseas, so it was great to see him be able to get cleared with that concussion protocol and get called up from the taxi squad. But he spoke to the media after the game about how he had a little bit of jitters, but he felt really comfortable out there.
Yeah, I felt pretty good. I thought, we did a pretty good job in today's game. I mean, 0-0 game, and we could have had a couple bounces go our way, but it's hockey. I think we played really well defensively and, showed our opportunities offensively. But I think in general, I felt pretty good out there. Thought I was skating well, keeping things simple, not trying to overextend my shift, trying to get some fresh legs every time I went out there, and just trying to chip in any way I could the whole game.
Very well-spoken kid, looked really comfortable out there. He was solid on the puck, and he just didn't look like he was making his NHL debut. Honestly, it really looked like he fit in the big leagues and with that team.
Yeah, Coach Blashill had said after the game that it looked like he had played 2 years of NHL hockey already. So that's a pretty big compliment. Art, what were your thoughts on Joe Veleno's debut?
Well, I thought he played very, very well. I know Joe very well, so I know that he's been looking for this moment for a long, long time. And talking to him when he was in quarantine last week, you could tell that he was eager and he was just hoping for the shot. Because the Red Wings originally assigned him to Grand Rapids, then they moved him up to the taxi squad. And I said, hey, Joe, that means you're going to play, right? And he goes, I do not want to speculate. None of them want to say anything until it happens, And I think there's some superstition involved. But look, he played almost 15 minutes, 14:59. He had 2 shots, 2 block shots. And that's another thing. The Red Wings have been blocking a lot of shots lately, which is a really good thing. He was 57% on the faceoff circle, 1-4, lost 3. He had 1 hit. He had in 1 takeaway. I thought he had a couple more takeaways than that. I thought he played a good all-around game. And I'll tell you what I really liked about it. How many times do we hear he wasn't trying to make something happen. He wasn't trying to manufacture anything. He let the game come to him, and he took his chances and he took his opportunities. Again, going back to what I say all the time about all these guys at the Red Wings draft, the number 1 criteria if you're going to be a Detroit Red Wing is hockey IQ. You have to be able to think the game. And obviously with that performance last night, Joe Veleno has a really good hockey mind. He thinks the game very well. Playing for Malmo this year, another great move by the Red Wings. He looks like a different player. I saw him play in Grand Rapids last year. He started to come on. And I will say, first of all, I think he got his hair cut for his debut. And Joe, your legion of fans love those locks on you. So, no more haircuts for a while, Joe. And he shaved too. He's got that rugged, he's from Quebec. He wants to be a trapper or something, I think, deep down. But what I want to say, you can tell that this is way too inside. I'm kind of teasing Joe, and I know he's probably not even watching.
Less, your tooth will hurt less.
Yeah,
but Blashill said you can tell he's bigger. He is really starting to fill out, and and he's not a small guy, but you could even see on the ice that he's a big body who can move and is a playmaker first, but also has a great shot. I thought it was a nice debut. Now he's going to be playing against Carolina, who's maybe the best team in hockey right now, the way that the Canes have been playing. So I think you've got to give him without question, full marks for a really, really nice and solid debut, which is good to see. The Red Wings need Joe Veleno to be a player, and he will be a player.
Yes.
Very well said, Art. I like it. Did you have to add something, Carly? Were you going to add something?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
She's just laughing at it.
You're welcome, Carly.
I lost my train of thought 10 minutes ago.
That's all right. As we
Sorry.
It wasn't a bad game from the Red Wings. They did create some opportunities. We saw Joe Veleno. Jacob Vrana continues to look really good in our lineup. So I really like what we saw, and we look forward to tomorrow's game against Columbus. And now we are going to move on to talk some Tigers, you guys. Our second topic of today's Big Three. The Tigers, I swear I'll get these 2 teams straight one of these days, but the Tigers, they registered a win over the Chicago White Sox yesterday, their first win in 5 games. So they snapped a 5-game losing streak, and Jose Urena was very impressive on the mound. One of his best performances so far this season. What did you think, Art?
Well, I agree. I mean, he's obviously, he's won his fair share of games in the major leagues. I know the last year wasn't good. The last couple of years, he's been dealing with some stuff, and he says he's healthy. I try to watch all the Zoom calls after the game, and you could tell that he was really, really pleased with the way things are going. He bared down. The Tigers were not good defensively at all yesterday, with 5 errors, and that's just giving teams extra outs. So what is it? So essentially, Chicago had 32 outs in this game yesterday instead of the regulation 27, I guess. So, but he didn't let it get to him. He believed in his guys, and obviously, when you make an error, you want to pick your team up. And so I thought overall, in a strange sense, this was a great win for the Tigers from a couple of aspects. I mean, you had Urena pitch very, very well, and then and Miggy starting it off. I mean, there was some power yesterday too, and so with Miguel Cabrera, and he has milestones that he's going to get, and I just thought and he crushed that ball. So I thought overall it was really, really a great a really important and good win, and the type of win when it looked like the bottom was going to fall out every moment. That, oh, geez, okay, here we go again. The Tigers were somehow able to get big hits at big times, and and leading off by Miggy. I think when Miggy gets a hit and he blasts a ball like that, I mean, straightaway center. And I know it's kind of a bandbox there in Chicago. I've been to that ballpark many times, but he just drilled it. As Double D likes to say, a no doubter. I think that kind of eases a little bit of the pressure on the team as well.
Definitely. The Tigers did seem to find their bats. It took a little while in that game. The 7th inning was really where things opened up for them. But AJ Hinch, Carly, was pretty impressed with his team's performance last night.
Yeah, he spoke to the media, and he said he was just really satisfied with the gameplay from the team, that Urena had a big mental toughness. I don't know if big is the right word, but he had a great mental toughness throughout the game, not folding under pressure. So let's hear what he had to say about the team as a whole.
His mental toughness stood out because he never let the errors behind him, some of the non-plays get to him. I mean, he just kind of hung in there and would make a better pitch, and then we would turn the double play, and you looked up there and we were hanging in there in the game. So obviously our team needed a win in any way. This, it wasn't pretty, but it doesn't have to be if you stay in the fight and continue to throw punches when you can. And we had obviously a really big 7th inning, but we don't get to that point if Urena doesn't manage the game the way that he did and manages emotions and stay in the strike zone. It was a job well done.
A job well done for sure. So I know they're on a road trip right now. Hopefully that they can keep that momentum going. I know hitting at-bats have been pretty tough for the Tigers as of late. So hopefully they can pick that up and be able to get that ball rolling and start getting some wins under their belt.
Yeah, Carly, Jonathan Scope also hit a home run in last night's game. So he was somebody that the Tigers are definitely depending on.
For sure. I mean, Scope is someone who's been solid. He was solid for the Tigers last year, but, just finding your groove. I mean, again, it's just a really weird time right now trying to get into the swing of things. I think for this Tigers team, they're under new management. And although they all say that they love AJ Hinch so much and that they had a great spring training, it's still a different kind of style when your whole team is playing different. You have different coaching, and it's just good to see them finally get a win. I know, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is their 7th win of the season. So, I mean, hey, keep it going. I think the Tigers have potential. I really want to see them make a playoff push this year. I know they were close for a while in last season, but they kind of fell off at the end there. So I'm hoping that they can get some confidence and kind of find their groove and stick with it.
Yeah, Carly, I couldn't
real quickly.
Oh, go ahead.
I want to say something too. I think a very key play in this game was in the 8th inning when Tim Anderson got on base. I don't know if he got a single or if he walked, and he tried to steal second, and Wilson Ramos threw him out, and Nico Goodrum made a great tag on that because he's the leadoff hitter. We know Anderson has been a Tiger killer. The Sox have all kinds of confidence against the Tigers. They had beaten them 9 straight, going back to last year. I thought that was a very, very, very key play in the game because if Anderson, and they reviewed it, and it was really, really close, but he was thrown out. now all of a sudden, instead of having a guy on second, Tim Anderson, in a game where you're only down by 2, to have him, sitting on the bench with 1 out, that was absolutely huge, because I'm sitting there thinking, man, if Anderson's safe, they've been through so much, you got to think maybe the dam is going to break here. But that was a really big play by Ramos. Nico Goodrum made a great tag. And then the next inning, as we just saw, Scope gets up there and crushes another bomb. So, really, hopefully this will be something to get the Tigers off the schneid, relieve a little bit of the pressure, and they'll be able to play some ball and start having some fun again.
Yes, Ramos had that great play in the 8th, and he also had the double in the 7th, which was a key play. So a good night for Wilson Ramos. Yeah. And I think to Carly's point, the Tigers just need to find some consistency. That's been the biggest problem so far this season. So hopefully as it continues, they can find that consistency. But we'll talk more about the Tigers. They're in Chicago again tonight with first pitch is 8:10 p.m. So we'll talk about that all show long. Let's move on to our third and final topic of today's Big Three, which is we're going to talk a little bit about some Miguel Cabrera milestones, because I feel like every ball they got to keep, right? Every time he hits the ball, you have to keep it. Last night was homer 489 for Miguel Cabrera, and he is just 1 double away from 400 doubles as a Tiger. And then he's 1 hit away from matching Babe Ruth for career hits. Babe Ruth, that's pretty exciting. Miguel Cabrera, one of the best Tigers we're ever going to see, you guys.
Yeah, I mean, he's the kind of guy you look at, and I know people were a little skeptical the past couple of years. He wasn't quite the Miguel Cabrera that we know and love, but he's really finding his groove again. I mean, we talk about him being at first base and how we don't want him to get injured. We're definitely keeping an eye on that chronic knee issue, but just seeing him finally be the Miguel Cabrera that we know and love every time he goes up to bat. And I think he's been solid at first base too. I feel like he's having more fun this year. I know he wanted to play that first base position, but I mean, just all in all, his game has been really excellent so far this season.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Dale.
We're trying to just give you a break, Art, because your tooth hurts. That's all. We're just trying to help you out. Go ahead.
It actually feels better when I'm talking. Because I think when I'm not talking, it just sits there and just throbs and throbs and throbs. But, it's just crazy. All right. All I was going to say about Miggy, when you're in the same sentence, in the same breath as George Herman Ruth, better known as Babe, then you're an immortal of the game. I mean, that's all you need to know. Miguel Cabrera is one of the greatest baseball players of all time, one of the greatest, certainly hitters of all time, and one of the greatest Tigers of all time. And, I always liked, when they paid tribute to Al Kaline, there was that picture of him and Miggy together, and you could just tell, boy, there's, I guess if you could resurrect Ty Cobb and have him in the photo, but you were looking at just 2 Mr. Tigers of their era, and I really, really, that picture really touched me as a lifelong Tiger fan to see that, and that Miggy and Al together, and just the reverence that he had. That's the one thing that we kind of forget about Miggy, is that he's so playful and he's always having fun, and that kid in Cleveland or whatever, that little thing he had going with him a couple of years ago. And, I mean, that's great, but he's a serious ball player who has a passion for the game and really, really loves Detroit and the state of Michigan. He gives his time. He does all kinds of things here in the community, and, but he's not asking for the accolades. He just goes out and does it. Miggy is really, really been a top-notch Tiger on and off the field.
Art, to your point, Governor Whitmer announced today, or I think it was today, that Miguel Cabrera will be co-chairing the Protect Michigan Commission, which is to help inform Michiganders about the COVID-19 vaccine and its importance. So yes, Miggy is not only a great baseball player, he's a great ambassador for the city of Detroit and the entire state of Michigan, and he's always getting involved with the community. So shout out to Miggy doing all the important things and playing great so far this season. So it's been fun to watch. And we're going to wrap the Big Three on that note. A big thanks to Chevy for presenting the Big Three. Chevy cares. That is why Chevy Clean dealers are committed to using enhanced vehicle cleaning measures with CDC-approved cleansers before delivering your vehicle after purchase or service. So when you're ready, you can find new roads with confidence. And now we know Dan Dickerson has been patiently waiting to be brought back in for the mailbag delivered to you by Little Caesar. So, Dan, we'll bring you in on that note. We're talking Miguel Cabrera. How awesome has it been to see the things this guy does, not only on the baseball field, but off the baseball field and for the entire state of Michigan?
Yeah, I love that he's co-chairing that new task force to encourage everyone to get vaccinated. I mean, it's important for baseball as players get vaccinated at now a 70% rate, according to the commissioner, and it's important for the state as we try to tamp this thing down. And obviously, Michigan's been a hot spot, and to have a guy like Miguel Cabrera out there saying, "Hey, this is what we need to do." I think that's huge. It kind of speaks to what he's always quietly done a lot of things in the Metro Detroit area and throughout Michigan and wherever, down in Florida, to bring some better things to the community. He's always active in the community. He's always, the money that goes into these kids is huge, and he's a big part of that. So anyway, I just think, it's been an amazing journey with Miguel Cabrera. That home run last night off Lucas Giolito, I thought was a very good sign. We talked about it. He's got to be able to get to the fastball, and he got to a fastball and hit it 445 feet. So, I mean, that's one little tiny sign after a 4 for 31 start. But if he starts hitting with any kind of authority in that cleanup spot or 3 spot, it's huge for this offense.
Definitely, Dan. And before we continue with your mailbag questions, I want to remind our fans that are watching today to drop your thoughts, questions, comments, anything you want to say in the comments wherever you are watching. We'll do our best to find them and get to them throughout the show. With that being said, we have our first fan question for Dan, and it's from Pierce from Battle Creek. And he asks, Casey Mize takes the bump tonight against a tough White Sox lineup. What does he need to do to have a bounce back game?
Well, it's a good question. I was talking with A.J. Hinch about this the other day, just about, how are his secondary pitches progressing? And I think he said something that is really worth remembering, which is we can't ride the roller coaster every single game. We are working, very hard with all the data to improve everything. But right now, we just have to let this kid go out and pitch. There are going to be ups and downs. And he said, I'm not going to get caught up in the game-by-game evaluation of everything that he does. He said, there is a process that takes place with rookie pitchers. This kid has the stuff. That's what we all have to remember. It's the rare rookie pitcher who comes up and succeeds and dominates right from the start. I mean, look at the guy we saw last night, Lucas Giolito, made 32 starts. He was supposed to be a star for the White Sox in 2018. He had a 6 ERA. It was a process for him to get to now being one of the more dominant pitchers in the American League. I'm not saying that Casey Mize is going to have a 6 ERA this year, but it's a great reminder that sometimes it just takes time. What you have to remember is the Tigers love his stuff. He's got 4 quality pitches. I was asking AJ about, when do you pitch off the fastball? He's got a fastball right now that's averaging 95 miles an hour. It's electric sometimes. But he said, really, you can't talk about a specific percentage game to game. It's about the opponent. This is a White Sox team that can pretty much cover the plate on everything. So it's going to be a real challenge tonight. But I think for Tigers fans, look for the use of that cutter/slider. He calls it a cutter. It goes into the books as a slider. I call it a slider. But that pitch is going to be very important for him tonight against this White Sox team. But it's a process. It's going to be ups and downs. But just remember, this stuff is good. And it's normal to have ups and downs and, some uneven spots for a rookie. But I can't wait to watch every one of his starts because, on any given night, it could be something special.
Agreed there. I know, Art, we were texting last time Casey Mize started and you were like, little nervous with what was going on. But see, Double D gives you the reassurance that it's just going to take a little while for Arthur to find his way.
Right. Well, Casey Arthur Mize, I'm sure it's eating him up. But the thing I like about him is that he has a lot of confidence in himself. And then when you show on the dugout, some guys you could see the anguish on their face in between starts or whatever. But, he's assimilated himself into the dugout. He's kind of laughing. He's joking around. He has a nice balance, I think. And so a guy like that has confidence and balance, I think that it's just a matter of time before, he figures it out. And, and Double D knows this better than I do, but he would probably be the first one to tell you. And I think that's why A.J. Hinch's comment about I'm not going to analyze, hey, in the third inning, he threw a breaking ball. Don't you think he should have went with the fastball? He's not going to do that because he needs to figure it out. these guys, as much as we can say that, and as much coaching and, people, patting them on the back and stuff, at the end of the day, I don't care who the athlete is, the athlete himself has to figure it out. He has to have that. That's why when I went back to the Red Wings, and I hold it for the Tigers, that's why you need a high baseball IQ if you're a baseball player, and a high hockey IQ if you're a hockey player, and football player, and basketball. You need to know what's going on in the game. You have to have a good feel for the game. That will make you the ultimate player that you can become.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, and Danielle, I think we're going to see that with Casey Mize and Tarek Skubal. You're going to see them being asked to get a key out with men on base as they're about to have their day be done. But that we're not, AJ said, I'm not going to come get you every time. So last start, Jorge Soler doubled the last batter that Casey Mize faced. If he gets him out, it's a very different feel for him after 5 innings of work. But he said those are the learning moments, and those are the things you're going to see all season long.
Yes, definitely important for the learning curve for our young pitchers that we're really excited to have up with the Tigers this season. So we'll continue to watch their progress. Art, your question is now going back to some hockey here. George from Warren asks, we watched Patrick Marleau break Gordie Howe's NHL games played record, which had me looking at other records Mr. Hockey has. He still holds the most all-star game appearances with 23, most consecutive seasons with 20 plus goals at 22, and oldest NHL player at the age of 52. Do you see any of these records ever being broken?
First of all, the first highlight that you showed in that package, the goalie makes a save on him, and Gordie, who is known to give an elbow or two during the day, just rocked that goalie with an elbow and knocked him down like, hey, buddy, don't make a save on me, okay? Unless you want to meet Mr. Elbow again. Excellent. It was just hilarious. Look, I think there's two that definitely are not going to ever be broken. And that is oldest player at 52, and I think all-star games at 23. The all-star game isn't what it used to be. At one time, it was the defending Stanley Cup champion would play the all-stars from the other 5 teams. It was usually original 6. And, and then that meant something. And, everybody wants to beat the Stanley Cup champ. And then you put all-stars against them. I don't think that's going to be it. The format always changes. It's now 3-on-3. You don't have that many guys anymore. A lot of guys would rather have that time off just to, sorry, Gump, you had to go down. But or that might have been Johnny Bauer, actually. But, the way it goes, I'm just saying that, those things aren't as important as they once were. The one that maybe, and this is maybe, is the most seasons, 22 of consecutive seasons of scoring 20 goals. A guy like Connor McDavid, as long as they're healthy, some of these guys, Austin Matthews, perhaps. I mean, they're going to have to be the elite of the elite to do this, though. As we're seeing, scoring is at a premium, especially with the Red Wings. But I really think that probably all 3 of them are in pretty good shape to hold, especially All-Star game and NHL oldest player. But maybe the consecutive seasons of 20-plus goal seasons at 22. I think a lot of this has to be economics. They're making more money now, and so there comes a point where they look at it and say, hey, I'm 38 years old, I'm still relatively healthy, I've made a nice a good living for myself and my family. Maybe it's time to look at my the next chapter of my life. So I think all 3 of them probably will not be broken. But again, 20 plus goals, consecutive seasons at 22, that probably, if another record is going to be broken out of those 3, that's probably the one.
Lucas Raymond, maybe.
It would be great if Lucas Raymond or Jacob Lucas, somebody who can make it at 18, that's a pretty legitimate shot. Patrick Marleau's in his 40s right now. I don't think he's going to make it to 52. The only guy I thought that might challenge Gordie, or who I wanted to, was Nick. I think Nick could still be playing today, but was Chris Chelios. I think Chris Chelios was coming, closer and closer maybe to eclipsing that mark. But, he's such a hockey historian himself. Chelly probably would have retired, one day before he turned 52 or something and not play him, and let Gordie have have that record. But I don't. I think they're in good shape. I don't think any of them are going to be broken at all, really.
Okay, fair enough. I like it. I don't think so either. All right, Dan. Next one's for you. Bill from Ann Arbor asks, it's a little tough this season with protocols, but is there anyone you are excited to see get the call up this season?
Yeah, I think the first thing to mention is it's just very weird not to have the minor leagues going on as this season gets underway because, if somebody was hot down there, you would have had some options to maybe bring somebody up as this Tigers offense struggled. It was a good night for the offense last night, the last 2 days, really. That's been very strange. You're going to start May 4th. And I think that's when, you're going to see some focus on. I would start with the position players because of the potential that you still have in guys like Daz Cameron. Don't give up on this kid. And you impressed at the end of last year. We didn't see him a lot in spring, but this kid can play. And if he hits a little bit, and again, this is where you wait. You're going to have to wait several weeks to see if that bat gets going down at AAA. But that's a kid to watch. Jake Rogers remains somebody to keep an eye on, mainly because of his defensive skills. And they like his defense. He just couldn't hit in the spring. He's going to have to show something offensively to ever get a call up. But again, the value of a good defensive catcher is still very high in the major leagues. And Jake Rogers, at some point, I think, is going to get the call if he shows anything with the bat. Matt Manning's at Toledo now. That's going to be, obviously a guy to keep an eye on. I don't think we'll see him till, probably June sometime. But every one of his starts at Toledo, once the season gets underway, that's absolutely something to watch. The other guy that I think we'll see again, just because, the up-the-middle defense has been much better with Nico Goodrum at short. I still think they would love to have Nico be that 7-position guy, but he's their best shortstop by far right now, and he's going to get a chance to play there most every day. They love Zach Short's defense. And I don't know how you ever get him onto the roster to maybe get some more playing time in the middle of the infield to shore it up a little bit. But Zach Short's the real deal. And I think he can hit enough to get a shot at some more playing time later on. He's fun to watch. He can handle all three infield positions that you want him to handle, second, short, and third. And, kind of quietly, this is, an unheralded pickup for Cameron Maben last year. This kid's going to play, and he's going to play in the major leagues, I think, for a long time.
I'm glad you said Zach Short, Dan. I was pretty excited about what he was able to do in the little time that he was with the Tigers. Yeah. We're going to move on to our fourth and final question, which is for the both of you. Art, you can answer this one first. Steve from South Lyon asks, the Tigers' bats have been streaky. How would you look to jumpstart the offense?
I want to hear.
I just want to piggyback on Zach Short. If he could be a combination of Don Wirt and Ray Euler, and I know Double D knows who I'm talking about, maybe hit a little bit more like Wirt did and have the defensive Euler. I would take that. I would take that. You could have him in a lineup, and his parents were the stars on the Bally Sports telecast there for a couple of days. So it seems like a great family. A guy like that you're rooting for. I've thought a lot about this. How can you jumpstart an offense? And, I'm a baseball fan. I'm not necessarily aficionado. I don't sit there like our good buddy Pat Caputo and, the Corsi, and all that kind of stuff. I love you, Pat. You know that. I don't know. I don't know that stuff. I try, but I was not a good student in mathematics. Numbers don't mean much to me. So boom. But with that said, this number is frightening. The Tigers in 24 games have struck out 240 times. Now, if my Livonia Public School education is right, that means they're striking out 10 times a game. 10 strikeouts a game. Double digits. It's, as I said, it's the third most in baseball. So I'm trying to figure, okay, do you go to small ball? Do you try to get guys on base like bunting, or if you do get a guy on base, do you want to do more hitting and running where you have to make contact with the ball? Work the count. I think that this is really, I think the Tigers have their work cut out for them because they've always seemed to be a real free swinging team. They go up there first pitch, or again going back to baseball IQ. You have to know what the situation is. That's why Robbie Grossman's kind of fun to watch, because he gets up there and it's like, I don't care what this pitch is. I'm taking it. Really, I'm just going to take it. I want to get that pitch count up. And I'm really curious to see what Double D says, because he sees them every single day inside and out. When you cover a team like he does, I am not sure how I don't know how you teach an old dog new tricks, to be really cliche-ish here. How do you get them to change their mindset and their approach at the plate? Because it seems like they're pretty cemented in right now with what they're doing. I watch as many Tiger games and all of them as I can. I try to watch all the Zoom calls, not before the game so much, but after the game, if they don't conflict with the Wings. And, and you can tell that the wheels are turning, but I don't think there's really a simple answer to it. And that race to 2 strikes that we always hear about, my gosh, the Tigers hitters are at 2 strikes after the first 2 pitches, it seems like, all the time. They're always like 0-2, or they're always working, with 2 strikes. So I would think possibly force them to work the count, work the picture, try to get guys on base any way you can to get the pitch count up and put some pressure on the defense and on that pitcher. Make him make a pitch. And right now, I think the Tigers, because of their free-swinging ways, are making it a little too easy for the opposition. But how do you correct it? With all due respect, and I am going right to Double D, because maybe he has the answer, because this is confounding to me. I can't figure it out.
I think one thing that you said, I think, first of all, the situation awareness of the game situation is important. Like we saw that the other day in the late innings, they couldn't come up with big at-bats with men on base, especially when Baду got to third with nobody out. I think it all starts with one thing. This is a team that chases. This is a team that doesn't make a lot of contact, but it still starts with one thing: be able to hit the fastball. They are not able to hit the fastball. The production against fastballs is rock bottom. There's a direct correlation between the teams that hit the fastball and the teams that are the best offensive teams in baseball. There's a direct 1-to-1 correlation. No other pitch. Because if you make your living hitting changeups, you're probably not going to have a great offense. If you can do damage against a changeup as well as a fastball, great. But what I'm saying is this team is missing some hittable pitches in the middle of the strike zone. Yes, there are some good fastballs out there, but if you go up there hunting the fastball, which they've had in many games, and that's a great approach. This guy's got a hittable fastball. We've got to hunt the fastball early, meaning you're looking for it in a specific zone and you're going to do damage. Tigers are chasing the fastball, and they're missing fastballs in the middle of the plate. And I think when that starts to change, we saw Cabrera hit a home run last night off a fastball thigh high inner half of the plate. He should do damage on that pitch, and he crushed it 445 feet. Jonathan Scope still is very late. So right now it's a timing thing. And A.J. Hinch has talked about this a lot. It's not about getting the barrel of the bat out in front of home plate. It's about getting in a position, loaded up, so that you can hit a fastball. And right now the Tigers are in between. When you see guys swinging at first pitch sliders off the plate away, and we've seen that a lot lately, you know that right now they're caught in between. They're looking for everything. So timing issue, you got to hit the fastball. This is a team that has guys who can hit the fastball. They're never going to be a disciplined team. It's going to be a team filled with swings and misses. The thing is, can you get the walk rate up a little bit? Can you cut the strikeouts? And it all starts to me with, I get back to that fastball.
Well, there you go, Art. There's your answer.
Well, and that makes sense. But remember, now there's a kind of, and this is probably a fallacy. I have heard for as long as I've been following the Tigers, which, goes back to Don Wirt and Ray Euler days, is that everybody at the major league level can hit the fastball. That's right. The one pitch that every hitter can hit. And that's why it's confounding that these guys can't hit the fastball.
It's rare to see a whole team struggle with the same issue. It's really rare to see it because of what you just said. You get to the major leagues by hitting the fastball. And right now, again, it gets back to timing, but to see it really up and down the lineup, kind of stunning.
Very stunning.
Wow.
Definitely a little bit.
It's a tough, it looks so easy, but it's a tough game.
As the season goes on, because now I'm thinking about it too much. All right, Dan, now that we're all thinking about how the Tigers are going to improve the fastball. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
They will.
Yeah, they will. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining us again, Dan. It was great to see you in person finally at the ballpark the other day. So
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Great to see you. Art, we'll see you down there as well, right?
Oh yeah, I'll definitely be there. I'll be there as long as you bring your hot dog maker. I'm there.
Oh, it's just getting to the point where it's nice. That hot dog maker, first of all, we're using it all the time still. Second of all, it's getting to the point where it's seasoning those hot dogs just right with all that good use of the grease from past dogs coming up and seasoning the hot dogs. It's great.
It's got to be an inch thick down there. You got to clean it once in a while, Double D.
Flavor. It's all about the flavor, Art.
All right. If you say so, I'll take your word for it.
I love it. Well, now that we're hungry, maybe we'll get a Little Caesars pepperoni cheeser to go along with our greasy hot dogs. Little Caesars proudly introduces their hot and ready pepperoni cheeser. You get a large pizza topped with classic pepperoni, fresh mozzarella, and a toasted Parmesan and Asiago cheese crust for just $7. Try our no-contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars. We're going to switch gears a little bit here and start talking some hockey, some Red Wings prospects and some prospects that may be available in the upcoming draft. Carly Johnston was joined by a very special guest.
It's time for Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. And today I'm pleased to talk to the Athletic's Scott Wheeler. How's it going, Scott?
It's going well. I mean, just before I hopped on here with you, we were talking about how my wife is due with our first child literally any hour now. So by the time this is out, we may have a new entry into the family. So keeping busy with that and getting really excited for that. And obviously U18 Worlds are now on. So my focus has turned to U18 Worlds, and the tournament started yesterday with a really exciting game between the Russians and the Americans that went to overtime, and was a ton of fun to watch. So happy to have that kind of hockey back on the TV, or back on the laptop, if you will, now.
Yes, and soon enough, you're going to be watching hockey with a little one at your side. So let's hop into some Detroit Red Wings hockey, if you will. I want to talk a lot about prospects. This year has certainly been interesting. A lot of prospects, I should say, have been loaned overseas during this odd season throughout the pandemic. Do you think this was a good year developmentally for these guys?
For the lucky ones, for the guys who got into games, the guys who weren't in the OHL primarily, I think it's been a fine season all told for everyone. We talk about it of the lost time and the leagues that were late to get started, but by and large, U.S. high school, college hockey in the United States, for the vast majority of programs, and then play across Europe for a lot of these kids, they had pretty substantial schedules. So maybe they weren't playing 40 or 50 or 60 games in a season, but in most cases they were playing 30 to 40 games, and they got in good schedules as far as what a regular season would look like for them.
Absolutely. So kind of on that, you ranked the Wings as having the fourth best prospect pool. Is that part of the reason why they jumped from 9th to 4th in your rankings this year?
Yeah, that was part of it. I felt like they had a really good draft in 2020, and that last October feels like eons ago. But I really was impressed with the job they did. Obviously, they'd amassed a ton of picks, and anytime you have 11, 12, 13 picks in a draft, you're going to be in a better position than your peers. So as far as that goes, they did a good job sort of amassing picks, and then I thought finding value with those picks. And obviously that starts at the top with Lucas Raymond. Anytime you add a player of that quality to a pipeline, it's going to make a big difference in terms of how you're positioned relative to the league, because there were only a few teams that picked in front of you. But it wasn't just that. It was William Wallander, and it was others throughout their draft class that I thought that they found equal value in. And Wallander in particular is a player that I'm a big fan of, so that helped to sort of reposition them. And then it's the growth of some of their other prospects, and I'm sure we'll get to them.
All right, so you're talking about that draft in October being a big part of the reason that they jumped in that prospect pool ranking. So let's talk a little bit about Lucas Raymond, who you pointed out. He's also playing in Sweden for Lunda. What kind of player would you compare his style of play to, and how well do you think he will fit in this organization?
The comparison that was often made throughout his draft year was to Mitch Marner, and I didn't love that, because I think he's a more determined defensive player than Mitch Marner was at the same age. He's a more aggressive forechecker. He's on the puck. He likes to chase pucks. So I think that is an element to his game that Marner certainly had to a certain degree, but probably not quite at that level. And then on the flip side, I also think Mitch was a little bit more of a dynamic player at the same age relative to Lucas, which isn't to say that Lucas isn't that, because he absolutely is. He's a phenomenal talent, but Mitch was a little bit of a higher grade prospect at that point in his development curve. So I don't know who the natural comparison I would probably make for him. Frankly, he's a pretty unique player. You don't often find players like Lucas who can control the puck like he can run the half wall on the power play like he can, and then have also sort of then added some other elements of sort of strength over the puck, and his skating has improved this year, and all of that has become a piece of the puzzle now.
Yeah, absolutely. We do need a star, I guess is kind of what you were getting at. But as we're talking about players who are over in Sweden, Moritz Seider, you mentioned, a bit of a pleasant surprise for fans, I'd have to say. I know when Steve Yzerman drafted him, everyone kind of looked around saying, wait a second, that's not who we were thinking Steve Yzerman would draft, but he's playing for Rögle in Sweden and was awarded the Elite Prospect Award, which is given to the top junior age player in the SHL, and was tabbed a finalist for the league's best defenseman. So what is it about Mo that makes him so good?
Yeah, I mean, this year he was sensational, and he's always been a top prospect, but you could count me among the people who was wrong about him on draft day. I felt like he was kind of that mid-first round, the kind of player who should be taken in the teens or maybe in the early 20s. And for him to go as high as he did, to go 6th overall, despite the buzz that had kind of begun to build at the combine and into the last couple of weeks there that said, okay, maybe this kid might go top 10, I was still a little surprised. So for him to have progressed like he has since, he's proven a lot of people wrong. And the big concern that I and others had with him at the time was that he was a little bit too deferential offensively. He would often sort of look off opportunities to just make the simple pass. And as soon as he caught the puck at the offensive zone blue line, he was always turning to give it to someone else. This year, he didn't look anything like that. He looked like he wanted to take over games, and not just take over games defensively, as we know he can, but take over games with the puck and attack off the line and create for himself and shoot the puck more. And he was a star in one of the best professional leagues on the planet at an early age. So he deserves a ton of credit. He now looks, and maybe he has always looked like it, and I just missed it, but he now looks like a true potential number one defenseman.
A player that seems to be fitting in the NHL with the Detroit Red Wings, Michael Rasmussen. Has he fit into the league the way you've expected and hoped that he would?
Well, he's definitely had a unique path. I mean, we all know that at this point. Just one of those players who was probably caught in that in between in terms of not being able to go once upon a time back to play in the AHL because he was either junior or NHL. And it's been an up and down progression for him since then, considering where he was drafted. But I think we've started to see in Michael what you expect to see. He's coaches in his Tri-City days raved about his hands in tight and his ability to tip and redirect pucks and be that net front guy. I think we're starting to see him insert himself there more. And it's just taken him some time to really round out his game and work on his skating. And when you're that big, sometimes that's just what it takes. It takes time to get a little bit more coordinated, get a little bit more comfortable, and start to play in a more aggressive style, the kind that he always played at junior and played very well at junior. So I still think, again, he's another one of those kids who I think fits into a second, probably third line role moving forward, and eventually becomes that versatile, another player who can play on the power play and the penalty kill, a smart player on read. So there's a lot to like about Michael, and I think he's really starting to come along and find himself at the pro level.
Yeah, and then we look at players like defenseman Jared McIsaac. He made his AHL debut recently, posting a shootout win already. Is he someone we could see on the fast track to the NHL wearing a winged wheel sweater soon?
I think patience is going to be required with Jared, a lot like what happened with Jonathan Berggren. It just is going to take time given his injury history at this point. He's just missed so much time, and he's been so unlucky in terms of the way that the injury sort of balls have bounced, if you will. So I just want to see him in games more. And I think that's where his head is at mentally. Just in talking to those around him, it sounds like everybody just wants to see him play consistent hockey, get reps, get into game action, and just get feeling comfortable and confident and aggressive again. And he's never going to be a dynamic offensive player at the pro level, I don't think. I think he's going to be able to contribute on the offensive side of the puck. But when he plays a challenging tight gap defensively, and with his reads and how well he reads and anticipates play, he's got a chance to be a good defender that way. And then some of the two-way stuff can come later. So for me and Jared, I think it's just about time. He just needs some time to get his feet back under him and to stay healthy. And I think if he does stay healthy, that in time you'll see him eventually have the kind of progression that we've seen out of Berggren now that Berggren's fully healthy. So I think patience will be required with McIsaac, but he'll get there.
Patience is a virtue. And we can't talk, of course, about prospects without bringing up the goalies. It seems that we have a good rotation right now with Jonathan Bernier and Thomas Greiss and solid goaltenders with the Griffins. But what about some of the guys and some of the prospect guys that we don't see in Michigan right now?
Well, I think Keith Petruzzelli is the player to watch. It's a big group. I wrote in my prospect rankings that I don't believe there's a group of prospects in the NHL in terms of goalies that have a larger number, right? There's really 6 or 7 prospects right now with the Red Wings who are under that sort of 23, 24 years old and have all had varying degrees of success. And you just hope that 1 or 2 of those guys eventually rises above the pack and makes it work and gives you an option. And I think Petruzzelli is the player of that group that I'm most high on. The coaching staff at Quinnipiac will tell you that he was very sort of gangly and very skinny when he first arrived. And it just took him some time in college to get comfortable and to build some strength and to just fill out his very, very large frame. And once he did that, and then he got comfortable with that new weight that he was carrying around, he became a star for them and really became one of the best goalies in college hockey. So Petruzzelli is a fascinating prospect for me because the game is trending very much towards those sort of 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" goalies. And he has that size element. And now we've also seen more of the track record, which I think is also important.
Well, talking with you, I know there's a lot to be excited for with this Detroit Red Wings organization. The future is definitely bright for this team. And Scott, I want to thank you because I learned so much. Every time I talk to you, every time I read your articles on The Athletic. And I do want to say I cannot wait until Baby Wheeler's Earthside and maybe we can talk some hockey with them.
I cannot wait. I'll keep you posted.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining me on Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. Daniela, back to you.
Thank you, Carly. Great to hear from Scott. And you're right, Carly. It is really exciting to hear from him and talk about all of the exciting prospects that we have coming up in this organization and some that are even already here. And now we're going to get into Let's Socialize, presented by AAA. And of course, Carly's joining us for this segment as well. Before we get into it, I want to give a shout out to Steven, who's watching on Tigers Facebook today, all the way from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. He says, go Tigers. So we're glad to see you representing out on the East Coast. And then on Tigers YouTube, Jackson, and Daniel, we see you guys commenting. Thank you so much for watching. And we're glad we could make your lunch break a little bit better. That's great. That's great news.
Oh, I love it. Thanks for watching, guys. Cheers. Yeah. My coffee.
Cheers with my water that's almost gone.
Art? Nothing?
Art's drinking vodka to get rid of the tooth pain. So.
The more I drink, the better my tooth feels.
Jeez.
Hey,
all right, well, let's kick things off.
I was just going to say, our buddy from Cape Cod, he's got to be a Petruzzelli fan because Petruzzelli's from Massachusetts. Probably has followed his whole career. Although Petruzzelli was a Muskegon lumberjack too, so he has some ties to Michigan.
Art, the human encyclopedia. All right. Well, Art, I'm sure you knew this, son. Luke Glendening and Nick Lidstrom are celebrating birthdays today. So a huge happy birthday to them from us here at WOW. Luke Glendening, man, as we've been talking about all season long, someone who's been having a great season. I believe he's 32 today. And then Nick Lidstrom, the perfect human. I mean, he's just a go. So happy birthday to him. Every day is a birthday when you're Nick Lidstrom, no kidding. But moving on to our second topic. Art, I follow you on Instagram. I believe it's AJ Reg. What is it? What's your handle, Art?
I think that's right.
AJ Reg 17?
AJ Reg something. I don't know.
Anywho,
I don't really know
you
what
are
I'm doing on social media.
Yeah. Well, but we love it. You are my favorite person to follow because every like couple weeks you do a photo dump on your story. And so we were so delighted to see this picture that you supposedly accidentally post. It looks like you were gearing up for your Word on Woodward show. A little bit before hair and makeup here, a little bit before dry shampoo. Bright and early. What time was this at, Art? Did you wake up around 1 p.m.?
Well, bright and early for me is like 10 a.m. So, I first of all, I don't know how this happened. I really don't. I mean, people kept saying people are looking at your pictures or something, and I kept getting these notifications. I am pretty sure that this was probably taken during one of our WOW pre-show meetings or one of our entertainment services meetings where they made us turn on our camera, which I don't, as you can tell, I really am reluctant to do. And I was drinking coffee. I have no idea. But yes, that was me, and the hair's starting to come back, It is, and so I'm feeling pretty good about that. But yeah, I really don't know. I mean, I put a sequence of pictures of me and then the universe, and then a Charlie Brown thing, all together, and I have no idea. I think I was looking at them, or just like going through pictures, and I must have,
you
hit
did it on Facebook.
I don't know. I really don't know how that happens.
Keep up whatever you're doing. You don't know what you're doing, but whatever it is you're doing, keep it up because I love them. It's like
great.
Thank you, Carly. I appreciate that. I really do. It coming from you, it means a lot to me.
I
touches my heart.
Well, we want to round. We want to round. Let's socialize out with a picture of Miguel Cabrera that they couldn't really come up with a concept for a caption. They said we don't have context for this photo and we don't want it, but this is just Miggy. But I want you two to caption it. I want you guys to help me caption this picture.
I feel like he's probably standing on first base or something and looking at a kid in the stands and just like making faces at him. So I don't really know how you caption that, but that's what I picture when I look at that.
Art?
Well, the first thing that came to my mind is, no, I don't have a salt deficiency. I just don't like you.
What?
What?
I told you it was the first thing that came to my mind. I know it's odd, but he has his tongue out, and I guess that's where salt deficiency came to immediately in my mind. And it's like, no, don't put salt on my tongue. I'm sticking my tongue out at you because I don't like you. Right. I know it's weird. Right. I'll be the first to admit that was just strange. But I'm very into the.
You know what? It's the first thing that came to mind, so we'll take it. Danielle?
Maybe. Okay,
all right, thank
I
you.
was thinking a kid, a fan, but I also feel like Miggy likes to talk a little smack. It's more friendly most of the time, but maybe he was talking to the pitcher while he was at the plate and ended up getting hit and got on base, and then he looks at the pitcher and he's like,
Love it. I think honestly I would have captioned that Miggy being Miggy, but you know what? To each their own. I liked all of your captions, but that's all I have for Let's Socialize.
All right. Thank you, Carly. We will see you a little bit later in the show. That does it for Let's Socialize, presented by AAA. AAA says thank you with free roadside assistance for first responders and healthcare workers fighting to defeat COVID-19. You protect us by going to work every day. Let AAA protect you on the way there and back. And now we're going to bring in Jason Beck for Brush Street Beat, presented by McLaren Healthcare. Jason is the Tigers writer for MLB.com. Jason, as always, it's great to see you. But before we get into this, I have to get your thoughts. I know you were listening to our crazy conversation about what Miguel Cabrera was doing in that picture that we just saw. What are your thoughts? What's the caption?
You know what? I actually couldn't see the picture, but I would not have efficiency. Would not have been one of my options.
That's funny. All right. Well, we will get into this, Jason. And speaking of Miguel Cabrera, we'll start talking about him reaching so many milestones. Every time he hits the ball, it feels like we're talking about something. He's only one hit away from tying the great Babe Ruth, but he's also making a splash in the community as well. They said that Governor Whitmer announced earlier today that he was the co-commissioner for helping really spread information about the COVID-19 vaccine and how important it is. So just talk about the impact Miguel Cabrera is making, not only on the field, but off the field too.
Yeah, this is big, and I was kind of wondering if one of the Tigers or multiple Tigers were eventually going to step up to the plate and do this, because the Tigers ended up being one of the first teams in Major League Baseball to get to the 85% vaccination mark in order to have some of their protocols relaxed. They got that a couple weeks ago, I believe it was, basically off of the vaccinations that they did. I believe literally on opening day, right after the game. And so, excuse me, to be able to do that, I thought it was a good message for community. And I kind of figured that it was an opportunity for them to step up. And who more than Miguel Cabrera, who obviously is known all around the world, if and certainly the state, and can kind of hopefully spread the message to encourage vaccinations, reach out in the communities, and kind of hopefully say, hey, I went through this, I experienced it, and it's no big deal. And it's certainly easier to go through the vaccination process than it is to go through COVID.
Great.
Art, you don't have a
I
question?
agree with you. Well, I do have a question. First of all, Jason, I haven't seen you clean shaven in a while. You're looking good. I mean, so
this is actually a couple of days of growth, actually.
Oh yeah! Oh, come on now. We all know that you just shaved like seconds ago. To say Jason's beard grows quickly is an understatement. But I want to go with the. I'm kind of obsessed with this number, and it goes back with Double D. The Tigers have struck out 240 times this season, the third most in baseball. That's 10 a game. Is that alarming, or is that something we're going to have to live with, that that the Tigers are just a club of free swingers?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think we kind of expected one of the goals that AJ Hinch came in one to bring was more disciplined at bats, cut down the strikeout rates, bring tougher at bats, put the ball in play more often. He's not the first Tigers manager to talk about that. Ron Gardenhire talked about that when he came in a few years ago, and they worked like crazy to try to improve that. The Tigers made some signings in an effort to try to bring tougher at bats, Robbie Grossman being foremost among them. So, in that respect, for them to be at such a high rate and be among the league leaders again, yeah, that's concerning. And it's something that they're going to have to improve, I think, if they're going to have a more consistent offensive attack. I think we saw the value of putting the ball in play from what the Royals were able to do, really without a ton of big hits during their 4-game sweep of the Tigers at Comerica Park. So, that's the type of offense I think that, maybe it's not the blueprint, but I think that value of putting the ball in play is what AJ wants to bring there. I think he wants more results like that, more results where they can advance base runners, get more runners on base to begin with, but also get guys around and bring them in. And it's hard to do that when you're swinging and missing, like you said. But also, 48 times, I believe they struck out in that 4-game series. So, at that rate, almost half of their outs for that 4-game series against the Royals were by strikeout. And it's hard to get runners on and move them along, at that type of rate. So, but, I think it is something that to a degree you're going to have to live with, because there was not a massive roster turnover. You were able to bring in some targeted signings, but, Nico Goodrum's always going to be a guy who strikes out at a certain rate. What you hope is that when he puts the ball in play, it's for impact. Jonathan Scope is always going to have somewhat of a high strikeout rate. So again, you're hoping that when he connects like he did last night, and be able to bring the ball out of the ballpark, and be or even just have extra base hits. So some guys at a certain stage, you can try to improve their at bats, but those tendencies have shown enough over the last few years that you can't expect to totally change them. So, even Akil Baddoo, his strikeout rate is fairly alarming, but it also isn't shocking when you look at the minor league track record. What you hope is that you can improve his play discipline and gets him more choosy and being able to improve the pitch recognition. And so, he's still going to be a high strikeout guy, but you hope that he's a tougher out on those strikeouts.
Jason, last night the Tigers snapped a 5-game losing streak in Chicago, and AJ Hinch spoke really highly of Jose Urena in his post-game comments. What did you think of Urena, and how do you think he's progressed so far as a Tigers pitcher?
I think it's very impressive. I mean, I admit after his first couple starts, I thought he was at risk of being moved to the bullpen, based off of the lack of ability to throw strikes and the lack of ability to work deep in the games. He was really struggling with walks. It was a problem that had been going on basically for most, if not all, of spring training. And it was hard to find encouraging signs that he was getting out of it. And then really 3 starts ago, it really started to change. He started throwing that ball over the plate and letting the movement take care of the location instead of trying to aim for the corners and then miss off the plate and, fall behind count after count. So, this is a guy that I believe they hope that they would get, a guy who, while not flashy, while not a high strikeout guy, despite how hard he throws, a guy who can deep into games and a guy who can get soft contact and ground ball outs. What he was able to do, when you think about it, is amazing. They committed 5 errors behind him.
Yeah.
It's, like you said, it's rare to win a game like that when you've got 5 errors from your defense behind you. But he kept faith that if he could keep getting ground balls, that they would convert them. He gets 4 double plays. He gets through 7, works long enough to get the lead. It really was amazing how consistent he was to get ground balls. And I kept thinking of like Rick Porcello at his, during his early stages, where he had that big sinker ball that he could throw hard and be able to keep the ball on the ground and to, let his defense do the work behind him.
Jason, it's interesting because sitting on those Zoom calls, AJ Hinch always said the difference in this game, especially the Kansas City, is that they strung their hits together. And when you have a free swinging team, it's really difficult to string hits together because they're swinging like at everything. But I thought that that's a really good point. I want to get back. Casey Arthur Mize starts today. 2 really good starts. Last 2 not so good. He's given up 5 home runs. Already some of the pundits and fans are saying, well, maybe he shouldn't have been number 1 overall. And now look at School Bowl. So now everyone's looking. Can't wait till Matt Manning gets up here because he's going to be the best of the 3. So it's really, really. Everyone's fickle right now, and everyone just wants the best for these young men. But do you believe that, Mize is that guy that's going to be able to, turn it around? And obviously he's faced the White Sox enough, so I don't think he's going to be all that, nervous about his start tonight.
Yeah, this is what young pitchers go through. I know, when we saw Brady Singer for the Royals last week, there was some of that comparisons, and they see the success that Singer's had against the Tigers and say, well, why can't Casey Mize be doing that? And the truth is, Casey Mize has had really good outings, and he's had outings where his pitch count's running up there in the 3rd and the 4th. You wonder how deep he's going to get into the games, and he's had other outings where he gets hit really hard. And Brady Singer's had that. A lot of young pitchers go through this. This is part of the process. Not all young pitchers go through instantaneous success, and even fewer of them who go through that keep it up, consistently. There's this growth process that comes with learning how to pitch to major league hitters, but also learning how major league teams watch you, scout you, how quickly hitters adjust to you, and then how quickly you have to adjust back to counteract what they're reacting to. So it's Casey's going through that process right now, and part of it's that. Part of it too is pitch execution. That last outing he was missing over the middle of the plate too often. He paid for a splitter over the plate, and I believe he paid for a fastball. And I think too against the Royals, Casey showed a really good ability to bounce between being really patient, drawing walks against Mize, and also be able to jump the first pitch or early in the count pitches when he would give them a pitch right over the plate. And I think Casey struggled to adjust to that a little bit. There really wasn't one common strategy there throughout the game. They were very opportunistic. And so, this is a little bit more of a consistent White Sox lineup. They're very aggressive, except for Madrigal and another guy or two. They're going to make you pay for your mistakes, but they're also a team that you can get to chase a little bit if you're able to hit your locations right. So, he's had some success against these guys. He doesn't have a win against them, but remember, he took a hit bid into the sixth inning against these guys last time they met last September in Chicago. So, this is part of the process. Casey's smart enough. He's shown the ability to adjust enough. I think he's going to figure it out. I think he still has a promising future ahead. You're just going to have to be patient. It's like with a lot of other young pitchers, not just who've gone through the Tigers, but also around baseball. Remember, Max Scherzer ended up getting sent to Toledo. They're at a similar stage in his career after the Tigers traded for him.
So we're not worried yet. Casey Mize is going to prevail, is what we're saying. All right, I like it.
Definitely.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. Again, the Tigers play tonight. 8:10 is first pitch. And of course, you can catch the pregame on Valley Sports Detroit starting at 7. Jason, we'll be chatting with you really soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Of course.
Jason.
And a big thank you to McLaren Healthcare for presenting Brush Street Beat this week and every week right here on the Word on Woodward. And now we are going to transition and get into Bet You Didn't Know, presented by PointsBet Sportsbook, an official gaming partner of the Detroit Tigers and the Detroit Red Wings. And of course, Carly Johnston is joining us for this one. So we'll get right into it. We're going to do a little preview of tonight's game between the Tigers and the White Sox. These two teams have a very, very historical rivalry. So they're going to continue that tonight. A lot of classic games between the two, including the Disco Demolition, where the Tigers beat the White Sox 16-0 in the first game at New Comiskey Park, and combining for 12 home runs in a single game 2 separate times. So yes, there has been some great history between the Tigers and the White Sox. Tonight we'll have White Sox starter Carlos Rodon, who is only 2 weeks removed from throwing a no-hitter and has been dealing this season, averaging over a strikeout per inning, with opponents hitting only, I don't even know, how do you say this batting average? 81.081 against him. I don't even know how you word that, an 081. Rodon is on quite the streak, but he's also a pitcher who has had a 4+ ERA in 5 of his 6 past seasons. So he's definitely bound to come down from the high that he's on right now, but it's going to be a tough matchup for the Tigers.
Well, Daniela, good news is that Miggy is hitting a cool 6.67 against Rodon in 9 at-bats, including 2 long balls. And if the Tigers look to get Rodon, look for them to do with power. That's something that the Tigers are really working on. 13 different Tigers have gone deep this season so far, but Rodon is much harder on lefties. So look for the right-handed power bats like Wilson Ramos or Jonathan Scope to make a difference. 2 guys who had great games last night.
Well, first of all, I remember Disco Demolition Night, and I just want to say, former Detroit disc jockey, rock jock Steve Dahl moved over to Chicago, and this was his idea. At one time, they used to have twilight double headers where games would start at 5:30, and it was 2 for the price of 1. They don't do that anymore. They want 2 gates. So you have that daytime thing, and then you have the nighttime thing where they clear out the stadium. I went to a lot of twilight doubleheaders when I was a kid because you could see 2 baseball games. That was in between the games where they blew up disco records at center field, lit the field on fire, and then a bunch of drunken Chicagoans, mostly young kids who were anti-disco, boom, just like crowded the field, and it was a riot. Sox forfeited, Tigers won the game. Disco Demolition Night, one of my favorites. Real quickly, getting to Casey Mize. The reason that Casey is having trouble this year is that his split finger is not breaking like it did last year. His break on his split finger was 5.2 inches. Right now, it's 2.6 inches. It's not moving enough. The guys can sit on it. They see it coming. It's location, location, location. He's talked about location, and he's not locating the split finger enough because it's not breaking enough. And, what's interesting, though, is that his slider, guys are striking out when he throws the slider 26% more than they did last year. And he's added velocity to his fastball. He told us last year that he's not going to blow guys away with his fastball. However, that's picked it up. So if he can get control of all 3 pitches, his slider, his fastball, and especially his split finger, which if it can break more, if he can get closer to that 5.2 and not the 2.6 inch break that he's feeling right now, he should be fine. He's going to work on it. And so I'm not worried about Casey Arthur Mize, but it's been the split finger that has been his undoing this year.
Well, too, the White Sox offense isn't hitting a ton of homers, but they are leading the AL in on-base percentage with 341. So they'll grind out some at-bats to try to get some walks to start a rally. But they also have a team batting average of 286 against lefties. So in a close game, definitely look for the righties out of the pen, again, like Jose Cisnero, Buck Farmer, Ryan Garcia, or Alex Lang, who is having a really good season so far. Daniela, I'm going to let you finish it off, though.
All right. Well, I have one more note for you guys that's in the Tigers' favor with this matchup with the White Sox. The bullpen for the White Sox is the 2nd worst opponent batting average in the American League. So if the Tigers can get past Rodon, then they can get to those pitchers as well. So again, it's in the Tigers' favor tonight, and hopefully they can keep the bats out. I think that's probably the most important thing for the Tigers heading in to Game 2 of this series with the White Sox, which again starts at 8:10 p.m. on Bally Sports Detroit. Of course, you can catch the pregame starting at 7, and that does it for this edition of the Bet You Didn't Know, presented by PointsBet Sportsbook. PointsBet understands that in sports, it pays to be fast. When you bet with PointsBet, an official betting partner of the Detroit Tigers and Red Wings, you get faster bets, faster withdrawals, and faster rewards at your fingertips. PointsBet has the best odds in all pro sports, so download the app now and use the code WOW2K, that's WOW2K, to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. And Tigers fans, before we move on, we want to remind you that all May Tigers tickets for home games are on sale now. Don't miss great matchups, including the Cubs, Yankees, Indians, and more at Comerica Park this month. Tickets start at just $10. Visit tigers.com/tickets. No one roots like Detroit roots. And now we're going to move back into some Red Wings hockey here, where Art and I caught up with a really cool former Red Wing yesterday. It's time for Downtown Hockeytown, presented by Labatt Blue Light. And today's guest, we're really excited to welcome Aaron Ward, a 3-time Stanley Cup champion, twice with the Detroit Red Wings in 1997 and 98, and then once with the Carolina Hurricanes in 2006. And so much more that you do, Aaron. You're a retired broadcaster. You're on a new venture in your life now, which I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit. But thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here. It just so happens to work out that all my Red Wing paraphernalia fits in my office.
Yeah, it looks great. So let's start right there. I'm going to ask you to throw it back a little bit to when you were a part of the Red Wings team and winning the Stanley Cup in 1997 and 1998. What do you remember most about those times?
I think it's more a recollection of wishing I had appreciated it more, right? So you're like 23, 24 years old, and you're going through the Red Wings organization. You're readily aware of the kind of challenges they've faced over the playoff runs of yesteryears, and that it was supposed to be your time, and they brought all these guys in, and Scotty's coaching. And so the mix was great. And we win, but only now at this stage of my life do I realize that I should have done a better job of appreciating not just the experience, but the people that were around me. I mean, honestly, it's a litany of Hall of Famers. I mean, even on D, the idea that Fetisov, Lidstrom, and Larry Murphy sat beside me for umpteen years, and as a green behind the whatever here rookie guy that was sitting in that locker room, not appreciating the lessons that could be learned. And I'll admit, and Art was around, I'm sure there's plenty of rules I broke and behaviors that I should not have partaken in. But a young guy learning from the best of the game was something that kind of missed me. And I learned later in my career that I should have appreciated it, and I do now, especially the fact that I was taught at an early age from not just Steve Yzerman, who was up front, but the guys that were around me, and watching the quiet demeanor of Nick Lidstrom and the professionalism of Fetisov and the I don't know how he got it done of Larry Murphy, but he did it consistently. How I tried to learn later on to integrate those qualities and components into how I played, in Carolina and wherever my career took me.
Aaron, I'm going to jump around because I have so many questions I want to ask you, but I know you were born in Windsor. And I know you're based now in North Carolina, but every time I turn around, it seems you're at Tigers opening day, or I know you have the tailgate at the Michigan games. I mean, your affinity for this area, for southeastern Michigan and Ontario, with Windsor being south of Detroit, of course, so we call it South Detroit, or at least Journey does. With all that said, though, I mean, this area is still pretty much home to you, I would imagine.
It is, absolutely. I still have family there. My heart's there. I mean, my father went to the University of Michigan. I went to the University of Michigan. I've still kept my roots and my connections with all my friends. You mentioned at the tailgate. There's nothing outside of the game of hockey and my family that I love more than watching Michigan sports, especially Michigan football. I'm a Tigers fan. I'm a Lions fan. I feel like there should be a support group for both those teams and all the fans that are there, but I've stuck with them. So everything about Michigan, there's nothing. If someone brings up the state of Michigan to me here in the state of North Carolina, I can go on and talk about everything I love, and I've kept those roots, and I'm trying to make it back as much as possible. My family's since moved on. My direct family has moved to Halifax, but I still have, my great grandfather came across his great great grandfather came across from Scotland and built the Highmarker distilleries across the way. So long line of drinkers of whiskey and makers of whiskey. So Michigan for me, like I said, I became an American. I'm an American citizen, and when you say where are you from, I would say I'm from Michigan.
I love that. Well, my question for you then, you're a fan of all Detroit sports and everything Michigan, so you're probably a Red Wings fan still, or at least following what's going on here in Detroit right now as they're in the rebuilding process. What's it like for you to see Steve Yzerman back at the helm of the Detroit Red Wings?
It feels like it's right. It was weird. Like, so my broadcast journeys when Tampa was playing in the playoffs and we got to travel with TSN, our paths would cross, and to see him in Tampa, you'd have to take a double take and think to yourself, Steve is not synonymous with any other team but the Detroit Red Wings. So you knew it was more or less destiny that he was going to come back. I mean, his relationship with the Ilitch family, with the city of Detroit, with the Red Wings organization overall, he's meant to be the guy that guides them back to where they're supposed to be. All right, it's an original 6 team. I went through the 90s. I understand what euphoria can happen when the Red Wings are playing well and they've got relatable players and success in the rink and what happens to that town. And Steve's the right guy for the job. He understands it. He's learned. He's proved. I mean, basically, the team that he built in Tampa won a Stanley Cup. And I guess we all have expectations that inevitably, with patience, that's where they'll be soon.
Aaron, he is a very proactive general manager, and I'm kind of curious. He's made a lot of moves since.
That's my as we're talking. That's my puppy playing with a squeak toy, so we're gonna have to endure that one.
Yeah, I thought it was mine for a minute. I did while you were on screen. I did a look back, but it's actually your puppy, so I'm done with that.
It's my puppy, and yeah, it seems like he's got impeccable timing. Art and I were going through the fact that the last time Art saw me on camera, he got up my shoulder. So hopefully, this mastiff puppy will know his role and sit down.
Getting back, I wanted to ask you, Steve's made a lot of moves here in Detroit too, but perhaps the largest move he made was at the trade deadline, right at 3 o'clock. It was kind of announced, trading Anthony Mantha to the Capitals. I'm not surprised that he made a deal of that magnitude, shall I say. Maybe the timing was odd, but what do you think of that first real major move by Steve?
I think honestly, it's due, right? You have to make your imprint on a team, and making small moves and deciding that this is the direction of the team for yourself. It has to be shown to everybody else. So I would say this for Mantha. Mantha, over the course of his career in Detroit, he was a productive guy, but there was some, I guess, warts in his game, and that would be sometimes he would show and sometimes he wouldn't. And it's not an indictment. It's part of being young and finding consistency in how you approach the game. So Steve making that move was bold, and it tells everybody else. Not only it serves notice that no matter who you are, there's a possibility you might end up somewhere else if you're not producing, but that he's trying to, in his design, make this team better. And I think that he made an acquisition of players that will enhance the team in years coming.
Yeah, so far we're really liking what we see out of Jacob Verana, so that's exciting for the Red Wings as well. And Aaron, I do want to ask you about the Carolina Hurricanes too, because as mentioned, you're a former broadcaster for them and you won a cup in Carolina. Now they're on the other end of the spectrum from the Red Wings. They are making a push to win the Stanley Cup this year, and they look really good. What are your thoughts on the season that they've put together?
Well, I think it's the path that the Red Wings are looking to take, right? So they're very patient. They went about a plan. They executed it. They didn't really deviate. And over time, giving patience to the process of letting younger guys be who they are and become who they're going to be, you get guys like Aho. And in that time, you take up certain players that may enhance those guys, right? So don't bring them in when those young guys aren't ready to have them. Bring them in when the time calls for it. And so now you got Aho teamed with Teravainen. You've got Hamilton coming in with some of the younger defensemen. I think the Carolina Hurricanes still have to address what lacks in net right now if they're going to make a run. But essentially, you got a guy in Rod Brindamore who's coaching for this organization that presents almost it's not an inspiration, but an example of how it's supposed to be done. Right? He never took a day off over the course of his career. He still doesn't take a day off over the course of his coaching career. So when you've got young guys wondering how it should be done and what it takes to get to this place, Roddy's a constant, almost not only example, but a resource of information for those guys. So he's got a team in his mold. They come every single night. They play hard. I would tell you he's an advanced thinker, better than I thought he would be as a coach, being able to fit a system to the talent in his locker room. But again, this is a team that's done it the right way. They've endured losing. I've been to plenty of games up in that press box where there's a lot of groans and moans, and the fan base is not happy, and the media members are getting ready to skewer everybody. But now it's time. It's their time. And if they can get timely goaltending, I think that will come by luck. I think they're a contender for the Stanley Cup this year.
Well, they were the team that I picked to come out of the East, to be honest with you, at the start of the season. And I'll tell you why. I love Sebastian Aho, and it's amazing that he's as young as he is. It seems like he's been in the league for 35 years or something, but he made the league at 18. Is he the most underrated player, do you think, or a forgotten player when you think about really top-level talent in the NHL?
So when you say underrated, there's two levels of how you rate them, right? Do players respect him, and does he get the type of attention that he deserves? Do players respect him? Absolutely. There's not a guy around the National Hockey League that doesn't understand what Aho brings to the table. He's small in stature. He's not a big guy, but he's in the right spot at the right time. He's almost like a Nick Lidstrom at forward, if I can make a comparison that everybody can understand. He doesn't command attention. I don't think he wants to have the spotlight. So when it comes to being an opponent against Aho, you understand what he brings to the table. I think where people say he's underrated, he doesn't get the attention because he's not in a massive media market. He's not playing for an original six team. He's and no greater example than the success the team has had with him, but he just doesn't get those accolades because he doesn't have 10 media outlets in the town writing about him. ESPN's not sending a camera group or anybody to come cover the Carolina Hurricanes. So he kind of goes under the radar in that capacity. And the assumption is he just doesn't get his due. He gets his due from everybody around the league and from his teammates and from his coaching staff.
I love it. Well, I'm going to ask you one more question. I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit and have some fun with this one. Playoffs are approaching. We're very close, just a couple weeks out now. Who do you think is going to win the cup this year?
Oh, the struggle. Okay, so this is the struggle with this analysis, right? There's been no crossover. Given there's 4 divisions and we haven't seen it, I truly believe that whoever comes out of the Canadian end of it, the North Division, are going to be so beat up. They've played at a playoff level for this whole process. My team, I kind of still want to tell you that I feel like Kucherov coming back is gonna basically be the best trade of the season, even though you're just absorbing a player you had. I think it's Tampa. I think it's still Tampa's to be had. My second tier, so I want to say Tampa. My second tier is going to be tied between Vegas and Colorado. I think Colorado has it. I think Colorado has everything you need to win. I think Vegas has everything you need to win. But those teams may meet and beat each other up, and that's where my concern lies. So until it's proven different, I'm going to go with Tampa.
All right. I like it. And I'm sure Art like that you said Vegas because Art is a huge Golden Knights guy. He's always taken Vegas.
Well, you can look at Vegas. Vegas really didn't have to make a splash at the trade deadline. I mean, they got Janmark because they felt like they've got more depth than most teams. So you're basically trying to integrate a player into your lineup that's gonna contribute and not upset the balance of what already exists in that lineup. So I think that's why I think the indication for me is Vegas thinks the same thing for themselves, given the fact they didn't do a whole heck of a lot of trade deadline.
Right. Well, obviously Kelly McCrimmon is GM and Max Pacioretty. They're both Michigan Wolverines. So how can I not like them?
How did I know that was coming?
I forgot. We have Art's gone on his Michigan plaid boxers on right now. I'm sure the biggest homer. Yeah,
he is. All right, Aaron. Well, unfortunately, we have run out of time, and there's so much that we still had to talk to you about. So I guess that just means you're going to have to join us again really soon.
I can do it anytime.
All right, sounds
Thanks,
great.
Aaron.
Thank you
Good
so
seeing
much,
you.
Aaron.
Sounds good.
And a big thank you to Labatt Blue Light for presenting Downtown Hockeytown. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light. Another thank you to Aaron for taking the time to join us. Some really interesting conversation. We'll definitely have to have him back on the show really soon. And to continue the conversation about some Red Wings hockey as the Red Wings take on the Carolina Hurricanes tomorrow night, here's Art Regner with today's headliner.
Well, thank you, Danielle. It is time for the headliner presented by Miller Lite. Let's bring in the television voice of the Detroit Red Wings from Bally Sports. Of course, Ken Daniels joins us. No stranger to WOW. And Ken, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate your time as always.
My pleasure, Art. Great to be with you.
Yeah, very nice to be with you. I want to start by saying this. I watch every telecast that you do, and I just think that I don't know. It's because all of you guys are landlocked or whatever, but it's really been enjoyable this season. And how difficult has it been? Because I know you're a rink rat. You like to be there, but you are for the home games, but really doing basically calling the game from the studio.
Yeah, you know what? I don't want to complain because we get paid to do something that we love, and I'm doing something I've wanted to do since the age of 10. We get into the games for free and get to watch them. And then instead of watching a game on a night off on my television and calling it in my head, I speak out loud calling it off the television, I guess. So it's different. It's a sterile environment when you're in the studio. Thank goodness for Mick, and we have lots of laughs before the game, intermissions, and sometimes even during the game. But I think what we miss the most is not traveling. That's hard. And with our crew, even though we see them, we're distanced. But on the road, it's, Art, when you get off the bus with the team and you go to a new city and it's 4 o'clock, and then you get a text from everybody lobbying 10 at 10 to 6, and you're all going out for dinner, and it's camaraderie, and you miss that. And even seeing the players and get to know them. As I know, Bobby Ryan, I haven't seen all year. I've spoken to Sam Gagne through Zoom. I haven't seen him. Mark Stahl, he could go somewhere else. I'll never see him. So, you just don't see anybody. So I think you miss that one-on-one in the room. I think in many ways it's just what it is. I understand it. It can be a disservice to the fans, getting to know the players, telling a story in a different way. You try to adapt, and I think we've done a wonderful job. Our crew has been great, and hopefully the fans at home don't think we're calling it off of television. So you have to ramp up the energy. I think it helps now going down to Little Caesars and having some fans in the building, because as a play-by-play guy, I like to build off the crowd, and you hear that. There was synthetic crowd earlier, and it's in your ears, after a while you forget about it, you just call the game. So I think once we get fans back, I love building off that. And I have to tell you, I don't know how the Bruce Martins and the Bill Hewitts and back in the day called the same team of an original 6 era 14 times a year. I'm tired of seeing the same team 8 times a year. To do it 14, I mean, it cuts down on the prep work in a way, Art, but then again, you're trying to dig deeper for stories so you're not repeating yourself every game. Like we played Dallas 4 straight games. It's like a playoff series, right? But when you're in the middle of the playoff series, the intensity of the series takes over the broadcast. You don't have to worry about telling stories or keeping people interested. They're interested. Here you are in a season where games for the Red Wings really don't mean anything, let's be honest, in terms of getting into the playoffs. It certainly did for Dallas. But you're trying not to be repetitive and yet trying to come up with new stuff. And when you can't get down to the room to see the players and talk to the players and find different angles on stories, that's been the challenge. But then I challenge myself to try to do the best job I can to come up with something different. So that's my challenge, and that's my work, and that's what I love. I know that was a very long answer to your question, but I hope I covered it.
No, it was a very long and informative and very entertaining and enlightening answer, as always, from you, Ken.
Thanks.
You brought it up. I mean, you're right. We're seeing the same teams over and over and over again. And I know we had Aaron Ward just on, and he said, with Kucherov coming back, he still looks at Tampa as maybe being the favorite. But what you've seen so far in the Central Division, and you've seen all the teams in the Central Division, which team do you think is the best team in the Central Division?
Well, getting Kucherov back, it's almost like a switch from last year, right? Where Stamkos played the 3-minute shift that he had, or the 3 minutes in the game, and scores a goal. So that was big when he came back for the one game or the 3 minutes that he played. But now you're how healthy will Stamkos be will be the question. And getting Kucherov back is huge. And I love Vasilevsky in goal. So I really do like Tampa Bay. Florida, I thought without Ekblad would really stumble, and I wondered about them because they've been so good all year, and yet they've been pretty good even without him. I think if Ekblad were there, I'd say it would almost be a toss-up the way he had such a resurgent season this season for the Panthers. I like Carolina. As good as Nedeljkovic is, I guess Peter Mrazek's their guy, and you know Peter as I know Peter. He can be absolutely brilliant, and he can be absolutely the biggest guesser in the National Hockey League. And when he's off his game, that can be a problem. So I have a tendency to go with goaltending. I'm not also sold on Bobrovsky, right? So I always come back to Vasilevsky, and I do like Vegas, and I do like Colorado. Not convinced about the Avs in goal yet, but I really do like Vegas. So, and again, as I guess Aaron said, right, you haven't seen the entire National Hockey League. So it's different. How do you truly judge? I just know one of the Canadian teams up north is going to get to the Final Four. That's what's going to happen. Really, you only have to beat 8 teams to make it to the Stanley Cup. That's all you got to do. So I think it's a strange year to try to judge it. Another team, and I don't know about Evgeny Malkin, but don't sleep on Pittsburgh. It's amazing that they've done what they've been able to do, right? But don't sleep on Pittsburgh.
That is true. No, that's true. Well, I just think that Carolina, what they've been able to do, and they're playing Tampa and Florida all the time, and those games are huge, and somehow they find a way to win them, regardless of what's going on in goal. I mean, I just think Carolina just has some sort of good vibe going, and I really do like that team. But I really want to move on to the Red Wings, and there's so many areas I want to go, and I know we have limited time, but Anthony Mantha being moved. This has been my take. I wasn't surprised that Mantha was moved. I thought it would happen in the offseason. Were you surprised at Steve making the deal at the trade deadline? Or do you think that not only was this a good deal for Detroit or bad, but it was also kind of a Steve really putting his imprint on this team?
Nothing should surprise you about Steve Yzerman.
Definitely.
Simple as that. Nothing should. I mean, whether it be from LeCavalier and St. Louis and Drouin and now Mantha, I think when he signed Anthony Mantha, I don't know, haven't spoken with him, but I would think that on a very friendly deal, not overpaid for what he can do, but long enough on 4 years, I think he had to be thinking in the back of his head, this rebuild's going to take a while. Anthony Mantha is going to be approaching 30 then. Jacob Vrana, as it turns out, as the deal works out, and he knows Brian McCullen well from days back in playing, that Jacob Vrana is going to be here and more in the midst of the team when it gets to that level than Anthony Mantha would be, probably on the other side of it, needing a new contract. So when you look at the deal, I think it works really well for Washington, and I think it works great for the Red Wings. And Steve saw this rebuild coming. He knew he was in the midst of it. But I think he also knew that maybe it's going to take the while that it's going to take. Mantha's a good contract to move. I think it's a good deal for both teams, what Washington wants, and I think it's a spectacular deal for the Red Wings. They fill the need with Panik, if need be, to expose him in the expansion draft and to get the picks in the first and the second to take it on. Salary cap space is a huge luxury, and he has lots of it. So I think it was a fantastic deal, and I'm glad that both players are scoring for both teams right now. That's great. Happy for Anthony.
Well, I think in the near future, one player that might be taking up some of that salary cap space, who's having just a wonderful year in Sweden this year, is Mo Seider, the elite prospect in the SHL. He's a finalist for Defenseman of the Year in that league. And, from talking to especially Joe Valeno, who we'll talk about in a second, I mean, the SHL is a pretty high-end league, as we both know. So I would imagine, I'm just going to say, what more does Mo Seider have to prove? I mean, I would be stunned if he's not a Red Wing out of camp next year.
I'm with you, and he's played on North American ice. He's played on the bigger ice over there, which is a lot more ground to cover. And I've seen some of the hits he's laid on. Boy, he's behemoth. I mean, it's great. And further to the point about Steve Yzerman and the trust that you have in Steve, whether it be now, came out of the blue and maybe with some services I saw, had Seider maybe 10 to 15, but to pick him sixth. But again, when he was selected, as much as we didn't know much, if anything, about Mo Seider, you trusted that Steve knows, because even when they took Braden Point where they did, and you see the progression of Braden Point from the third round, and the only knock on Braden Point was his skating, and they find out he had some ankle issues. They worked on that as an organization in Tampa Bay, and they knew what they were getting. They knew they could fix that, and they got it fixed. And look at Braden Point now, third round pick. Andre Vasilevsky, yes, it was the pick from the Red Wings in the three-way deal with Colorado and the Kyle Quincy deal. But still, at 19 to take a goalie, he took Andre Vasilevsky. Long-term thinking, when many thought, boy, that might be too early. He didn't think so. So when he takes Mo Seider at sixth, you got to love it. And even Lucas Raymond, if he was on that board at 4, and would you have liked to see him in the Red Wings, and maybe Stützle, maybe they loved him too, but you have faith. And I think fans are going to love Lucas Raymond. He's got some of those Datsukian qualities to him. And I don't know, outside of Seider and Raymond, and some who project say that he could be the best Red Wing player in 4 years from now. There's no hurry. They're going to be in the midst of it. Maybe then just getting to make a push in the playoff time 4 years from now. But another wonderful pick, so you just trust it. So I getting Seider, I'd be shocked too with you, Art, that if he weren't on the Red Wings out of camp, knock wood, in Traverse City later this year.
Yep, as I like to say, knock wood right here. With that said, I want to specifically 3 Red Wings Philip Zadina, Michael Rasmussen, and making his NHL debut last night, Joe Veleno, all 2017-18 draft picks, all number one choices. I like Zadina. I mean, I know he's not putting the puck in the net near as much as he wants to, but his 200-foot game, his play doesn't seem to deviate. He gives you, I think he's a real smart hockey player. Rasmussen, I've always liked Michael, as you know, and I think in front of the net, and he's starting to use that big body. He had 6 hits last night. And then Joe Veleno, when Jeff Blashill says, listen, we're going to let him play center, granted, it's right at the end of the year, but I think Veleno is much bigger and has shown some flashes too. Your opinion of those guys?
Yeah, I loved watching Veleno at the World Junior Championships. He's got terrific acceleration, wonderful player. I think he could step in and be a strong third line center next season for the Detroit Red Wings. And where does Rasmussen fit in there? Is Fabry still a center, Dylan Larkin, etc.? But I think Joe Veleno, the only question will be his ceiling offensively. Can he become a second line center and produce enough in tight, make plays? But certainly defensively, and what he learned in playing the wing in Sweden, where it's a defensive-oriented league over there. So I think Veleno, wonderful. I think he can be third-line center all day long. Zadina, I think great improvements in his game. And again, as you mentioned, defensively, I think that's what they wanted. The Red Wings wanted to be sure. He can play in his own zone. We can see him make plays, sometimes forces things a little bit, trying to get passes through, where that'll just come with patience, though. That just comes with time. Rasmussen, he worked on it. He worked on his skating, and now you can see the quicker steps. You can see the confidence. I don't think there's ever a question mark about Michael Rasmussen in his own zone, playing down low, being strong on the puck, and as you say, power play. Will he score maybe 10 a season? Just in front, tipping pucks as his career moves along. I'm not sure he's going to be a 20 to 25 goal scorer in the league, Michael Rasmussen. He may get lots of them on the power play. But I think doing that and be responsible in your own zone, that'll go a long way to solidifying a need for the Red Wings.
Ken, there's jumping around, and I really wanted to ask you this question, though. The NHL, new broadcast partners beginning next season, ESPN and now TBS. And TBS is going to be doing like their Inside the NBA show, which is very entertaining with Kenny Smith and Charles Barkley and Shaq and all that. They want to do the same with hockey, although I think somehow, because Charles Barkley's such a huge hockey fan, I think he's going to find and finagle his way on that show, at least during the playoffs. But that's a pretty lofty show to kind of mimic. Who in hockey, who do you see doing that show? Or I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah,
I think you should do it, actually.
Yeah, Brian Burke's gone now with Pittsburgh. I thought he was wonderful on Sportsnet. I think Kevin Bieksa has become a rising star on Hockey Night and Sportsnet. And the way that he can jab, and probably a little too much sometimes, jab his own mates in the studio, but that can be what Barkley does. I'd love to see Charles Barkley on hockey. I don't know every night, and I don't think Charles Barkley, with as much money as he has, I don't know how much more money you can pay him to work. The Beatles said 8 days a week. I don't think he wants to work that much. You've got basketball. There's going to be overruns, right? TNT, whether it goes to TBS and in playoffs, same station, etc. It is Warner, so they've got some outlets there. HBO Max, move them around. But Barkley would be one for sure. I think Kevin Bieksa would be another. And I think a great guy in studio, although I'd miss him calling games, but I think he should be part of it, I think would be Ray Ferraro. I think Ferraro would be wonderful on that broadcast. So they've got ways to go. I think they're skewing younger. I think what the National Hockey League did there with TNT is terrific. And I've worked games with the NBC since 2011 or 2012. Not a lot of them, probably done 25 games for them over the number of years and some playoff series. So that was fun to do. And, with ESPN on board and TNT, I think it's great. And streaming and HBO Max, and I think it's a plus for the league. And the money that they got will only help. In this time, we're almost tripling the money what NBC paid. So I think it's great.
I think it's great too. And one final question: because of quarantine, do you think that whomever comes out of the North Division, which is the Canadian division, will end up playing their playoff games in the United States?
On a hunch, I would say yes, only because of the Canadian government and the lockdown there. Certainly lockdown in Ontario, not the rest of Canada, but the border's still closed. I'm a Canadian citizen. I can go back if need be. My family's there. But yes, I would think there will be not necessarily hubs, but the Canadian teams coming over to play in some neutral place for them and then to the other city, whomever they're playing. In the United States, I believe that to be the case. Yes, and it'll only be a couple of series. It's not the be all and end all. It'll be hard on the players. This whole year has been hard on the players. Art. It's been hard on everybody. And what the players have gone through this year, kudos to them and to the owners and to the fans for putting up with everything. We're getting through this best we can, and to the National Hockey League and to Steve Hetzer-Petros. He should be the MVP of the NHL. And if you don't know the name, a tough name to say, Steve Hetzer-Petros is the schedule maker for the NHL. Kudos to him and the league for adapting.
Right, definitely. And you bring up a good point. It's only it'll only be the Final Four is when the Canadian champion will have to play in the United States. And that would be, as you said, 2 series if they advance to the Stanley Cup final. Ken Daniels, we're going to have to end it there. It's always great to have you on. I do appreciate your time. We'll have you on very, very soon. And have a good day, and we'll talk to you soon, Ken. Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you sooner than a year from now, Art. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. I sure hope so. All right, take care, Ken. Thanks again. That'll do it for this edition of The Headliner presented by Miller Lite. Miller Lite, it is the original light beer. It's only 96 calories. It tastes great, and it's available for delivery. Carly, back to you.
Thank you, Art. That was fantastic. I love watching you two converse and be able to talk to one another because I know it's been so long. You guys are such great friends. I miss Ken.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, we miss everybody, and he brought up a really good point. The thing that I think we miss is that we're not in the room anymore. We're not in the bubble. So I've talked to Bobby Ryan. Heck, I'm sharing books with him and stuff, but I don't really know him. I've never seen him. I saw him when he was a player for other teams, but not having that kind of interaction, that one-on-one where you can develop a little more of a personal relationship and get to know somebody and understand them as opposed to just hockey, or what you do, So that's a great point by Ken. But I do want to say this. Fox / now Bally's, they've done a great job under really trying circumstances this year.
Absolutely. I know it's been tough for everyone. We're doing the best we can, and I really have to give everyone a pat on the back because it has been fantastic to be able to give the fans the hockey coverage and the hockey games that we've been trying to give them for a year now. But, you were talking about Bobby Ryan not being able to meet him. What about John Merrill? He's already gone, and we never even got to meet him in person. It's been definitely a crazy year.
Right. I got to know John a little bit when he played for Michigan because I was doing a lot of CCHA hockey. But yeah. And that would have been a personality that I think we all would have. He's very, very engaging. Carly, I know we have to run. We're running out of time, but I have to, I'm complaining about my tooth and you had like major knee surgery. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm doing all right. I'm excited to be back at Little Caesars Arena this weekend for this back-to-back series against the Lightning. But before we go, I know we're talking about our injuries and our bad news, but I want to give a huge congratulations to Larry Murphy because he welcomed in a little baby to his family. So big congratulations to the Murphy family. Beautiful, beautiful little baby. So as we were talking about Valley Sports and then bringing us all the coverage on top of Larry Murphy being out, they don't miss a beat. So big congratulations again to the Murphy family and the Valley Sports Detroit family. Yeah, but unfortunately, Art, the show has come to an end. It has been fun as always. But fans, if you have missed anything in the show, you can catch up watching the interviews on the WOW YouTube channel or listen to the show as a podcast on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. The Tigers, as we were talking about earlier in the show, take on the Chicago White Sox at 8 p.m. I-97 won the ticket in Valley Sports Detroit with the pregame starting at 7. And tomorrow, the Wings continue the road trip in Carolina at 7 p.m. I-97 won the ticket on Valley Sports Detroit Plus. And as you watch the game, check out the Hockeytown Home Ice presented by Bud Light with Art Regner, Daniela Bruce, and I. Well, we'll talk about all of this week's news and much more next week on the Word on Woodward, coming to you Wednesday at noon on Detroit Tigers and Red Wings Facebook, YouTube, and websites. Until then, let's go Red Wings and let's go Tigers.